me the story, but why are you on death row?
Participated in a murder on a rat.
Where did this murder take place? What year?
In 2009 in Tehachapi Shoe.
So I can only imagine the amount of people that you have came across.
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody who does time as a career, man, they network, you know. And if you're about anything, then you draw, you know, strong-willed people towards you, you know. And if you're a bad person or something, you know, then you repel people. But yeah, I've met quite a few people in my time that I consider real good mother.
You know, there's one individual who, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was from Pomona, and that he had shot a cop. This happened in the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. Is he right there with you guys?
The only cop killer I know is Cummings. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's some others, but I don't know. What's his name?
Yeah, who's that Cummings guy?
Cummings is I think he's been here for like 30 or 40 years, but yeah, he's an older black guy. He's got a shootout with the cop when he was young back in LA, and been here ever since. Pretty much ever since they reinstated the death penalty.
So, of course, I can only imagine that you have came across the infamous Scott Peterson.
I mean, I don't know the guy. He was in North Seg over here. That's like, I don't know, the Privilege North Block or whatever. It's the Privilege building where they don't have handcuffs on and their doors are open all day and they can roam freely. Most of the high-profile guys go over there, but you know, I did sell some of his memorabilia a while back, and yeah, so he had he signed some shirts, and there's some video taken of him in council. He was on council, and some video was taken of him on a conch man's cell phone during council, and everyone went to the hole over that, but the video made it out.
You know, it takes a special kind of person, you know, just a different type of individual to want to actually collect that memorabilia, you know, as a collection, you know. What would drive someone to want to have that in their homes? It just figures me strange.
You know what? Yeah, like, I mean, people that do atrocious deeds or some way out shit, man, that other people just don't have in them, right? But always wish they did, maybe, or, you know, maybe just the darkness of it, you know, speaks to them, and they want to collect something, you know. I don't know, man. I made a career out of it. I made $40,000 in a year and a half selling IDs, just IDs, man, and a few other little pieces of memorabilia. Yeah, man, when I came to death row, that was like my plan was to collect a bunch of memorabilia, get all the best clientele, and just deal with them, man, not with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. And the only person's memorabilia that I never sold, well, and that's because he was a friend of mine, was Charles Manson, man. And I had a ton of his memorabilia, lots of photos signed, and parole papers that he never went to the parole hearing, but they still gave him the papers, you know, signed, and necklaces and spiders, and you know, I like all kinds of made, and I just gave it all away to all his fans and all the people that supported Atwell, because Atwell was his you know, his baby, man. That was his non-profit environmental organization, stands for air, trees, water, and animals, and like that was what he was all about, man. He wasn't into the serial killing kind of thing, man. Like I knew him really well, man, and I was his neighbor for probably about a year, and I had a pocket talker, which is a listening device for the hearing impaired, and there's a chase between us, so it's like a little plumbing room. It's maybe like 10 feet long, and there's a little hole where you put your power cord in so they could plug into the chase. So me and him made these little blowguns and shot little blowgun thing across the chase until we hooked our lines, and then we pulled it through, and I ran the wires through the chase like that so the cops couldn't see. We both had a microphone and we both had earbuds that would reach anywhere in the cell, and that was like my cellie for fucking about a year, man. And he was a really good dude, man. And he had his girl visiting me, Star Afton Burton. She came to visit like every Sunday.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He got me a lot of support. I met my wife through him. She used to do his websites, and and like this thing about Charles Manson is this. Most guys that come to prison for crimes like serial killing or anything famous, right? They want to brag about it. They want to boast about it. Even if they didn't do it, they boast about it, right? So that they can gain some sort of stature in prison and be feared and be left alone. So Charlie had every reason to say he did it, but to his dying day, he never claimed to have done the crimes that he was alleged of, and he trusted me. He trusted me a lot, and I looked out for him, and he looked out for me, both in our own ways, There's a book called The Manson File by Nicholas Schreck. He just did a second edition. I'm in the back of it is Kenneth Thunder Nowlin, and so anybody can check my story. Like Charlie told everybody about me and introduced me to all his, closest friends and supporters. And I used to do his mail, man. His mail bag would come to me every day, and I would read him his mail. And anybody he wanted me to write the letter for, because he couldn't really read or write that good. And over time, age just kind of messed him up, So at night, I'd read him a book. I read him The Manson File, the first edition, a couple hours every night, and I read him the Tibetan Book of the Dead a couple hours every night. And we talked probably like a good 18 to 20 hours every day. Even when I was trying to sleep, he'd be talking, man. And that man is really interesting. He's got some really good notions. He's got some really intelligent conversation. And most of all, like, I know he didn't do the crimes that they say he did, but he didn't want to get out. He didn't want to be found not guilty. He didn't want to get out on parole because as long as he was locked up, he was bringing the spotlight towards his nonprofit, Outlaw. But if he got out, he felt like the world would forget about him and Outlaw would lose the spotlight. So a lot of times he'd tell people, I'm Jesus Christ, or I'm the president, or I'm this, or I'm that. And people took him literally and thought he was crazy, but he wasn't. Everything he said had meaning. And Jesus Christ, for example, his crimes that he didn't do, he never told on nobody, rolled on nobody, never gave people up to get out, and he could have got out, man. There's a lot of lawyers that could have got him out. He didn't want out. He didn't even go to his parole hearing the last time I was there with him because he felt like that was his cross to bear, so that Outlaw can get attention and get support and get notice and get, build their awareness, man. And that's something noble, man, that most people don't have in them, And Charlie was an old convict, man. On his 128G, he had over 120 fist fights. That's toe-to-toe slinging fists with dudes that want to kill you. You know, it's not.
Did you see any?
No, I seen his paperwork though, and paperwork is everything in prison. You know, like when I moved next to him, I studied his case. I read his paperwork. I listened to his story. I didn't watch the media because I wanted to make sure that this dude isn't some weirdo and all her true. You know, otherwise I wouldn't. But when I found everything, I mean, he was railroaded, bro. Like, it's just everything about the case was bull. Man, Helter Skelter was bullshit. But Charlie was he was like on a world stage, and he liked his plays. And if somebody said he's a racist, he became that racist. If somebody said he was a monster, he would become that monster on stage so that everybody can see, you know. And he just gave the world what they wanted. And if they said anything about him, you know, he would become that. And I seen it even in prison. Like, we'd be talking on Pocket Talker, and a nurse would walk by, and he'd be like, watch this. And he'd get up, and he would, you know, start babbling to him this and that, saying way out that to most people would sound like he's crazy until they walked away and left him alone. And then he'd laugh, come over, and see how easy that is? And the lesson to this is this. All those who thought he was fucking crazy, babbling stuff, he came from a southern, like, prison environment and YA, you know, like, and down south, man, they have a way of talking. It's like a chain gang slang, and everything that they say sounds weird and it has like alternate meanings, but it's meant so that when the cops hear you talking, they don't know what you're talking about. And Charlie loved to use that babble here in this state where they don't do that, because that's how he learned to talk in front of people without them knowing exactly what he's saying, unless they were meant to know. And the stuff that he would say all was relevant to his stories. And if you knew him, and if you knew his stories, and if you heard his stories firsthand, then when he said certain stuff, you would relate it to those stories, to that time.
You have 60 seconds remaining. This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
And it would dawn on you what he's actually saying, right? And it makes perfect sense, you know? But you've got to be willing to know the guy, and he's got to be willing to trust you in order to have that conversation, you know, or understanding. So many people don't understand all the things that he said, but like, I questioned everything he said, man. Like, we had debates, and we had arguments, and we had philosophical you know, debates on, and it was refreshing because he was a unique individual with unique thought. He wasn't taught in schools or by, you know, people that just mimic shit, you know, or teach mimicry. He knew how to use his mind. Like I was saying, Charlie was a unique individual, man. He had unique thought. He wasn't taught in the school systems or by, you know, preachers or parents or anything like that, man. He was raised in the system just like I was. I came in at 15, and I'm 45 now, and I had 9 months out on my 21st birthday, you know. And he was pretty much the same way, man. He had been down for 44 years, I think, on that bid right there when I knew him, and more than 50 by the time he died, you know. And that man right there, I tell you what, like, people wonder why I helped him or why I looked out for him or why he looked out for me or helped me. And it's because he's a warrior, man. And if I hadn't seen that 128G with all fist fights, now granted, he had just as many grooming standard violations. He had like 100 and something of those. But any man that's willing to fight 120 plus times, you know, that takes courage, man. And scrapper, that's a warrior. He never ask for protective custody. That's a misnomer, man. I've seen all his paperwork. He had me file a 602 on his behalf asking to be released to mainline, where they denied him, saying that he would be killed or targeted, and his response was, I don't care, I want to die on mainline, not in protective custody. I'm not a rat. I don't want your protection. Who's going to protect you? You know, that was what he said. And like he did, I told him, I said, you know, if you go out there, you're going to die. And he said, man, I'd rather die the first day out there than live the rest of my life in here in the PHU around all these rats telling on me, around all these pieces of shit. He hated in PHU, man. He hated that. But when he got set on fire, and you know, the administration says, all right, that's it. We're going to fucking put you on administrative protective custody. But people think he requested that, and that's not true, man. I've read all his paperwork. I've seen it all. In prison, that's what you do, man. Your paperwork is everything. And you show it to your neighbors. You show it to whoever needs to see it, man. You take it everywhere you go. Even in the transport, man, motherfuckers hoop their paperwork, you know? And, I mean, most people don't understand that, but you don't want to get caught without your paperwork, you know, because people suspect you and target you, or, you know, like, think badly because you're hiding something, you know, and next thing you know, you're dead because you have your paperwork, you know? I've seen it, man. I've seen it. And Charlie...
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Charlie never hid nothing from me, man. He trusted me, fucking, and I trusted him, you know? And he said... They had posters of me in Corcoran's shoe on the walls because I was known to make handcuff keys and hide them in my nasal cavity and come out of my handcuffs and stab people or cops. And so they put these warnings up in my picture and all these safety precautions all over the walls and in the law library and in visiting where I didn't even go, and in the building and anywhere, all in medical. And Charlie seen these posters, and that was rare. Like, no, I'd never seen that done before. But they had to make sure that everyone was aware and safe, and I was watched, right? And so Charlie thought to himself, hey, if the cops hate this dude that much, then he's probably not telling them anything. And if he hates cops that much, because I whacked a cop my first year in California prison, I cut a cop's throat in Calipat, and when I did that, man, he's thinking to himself, he hates cops, he ain't gonna work with one. So like his reasoning was legit, you know, like, and he trusted me, and he never trusts anybody, man. He always thought people were telling on him, or, you know, rats, and he was right most of the time. You know, that's just what people do, man. But there are some who don't, and he never told, man. He never fucking told. And that's a lot more than I can say for most people, you know. And that dude had a heart of gold, man. He would make sure that everyone had a TV. He'd make sure that everyone around him had a store. Not because he's paying any rent or being pressured or anything like that, but because a lot of people donated money to him. And his books would get up to $10,000, and then he'd have to mail it out. So why not spend it on people, you know? And he always believed in karma, and whatever he puts out into the universe comes back tenfold. And he firmly believed that, and he instilled that in me. And ever since seeing his example of that and seeing that he would give the shirt off his back, you know, I started doing that in life, man. And almost anything I get, whether it's money, drugs, contraband, whatever, I try to give half of it away, man. And then a quarter of it I'll sell, and then a quarter I'll do or keep, you know, like, and that's just like the math that I live by, because he's right, man. What you put out into the universe comes back tenfold, man. And the energy you put out into it, he was always happy, always jolly, always singing. In fact, they wouldn't let him have his guitar, so he made a little harp out of fucking wet toilet paper, dried, and these rubber band strings around it. To the naked ear, it doesn't sound like anything, but when you put the mic on it from the pocket talker, the amp, the listening device, then all of a sudden it became a electric harp, and we would take turns in making lyrics to songs and singing fucking folk songs, man. And it was really awesome, and seeing how happy he was, he had someone to talk to, trust, confide in, and somebody that's just like him, man. You know, like Charlie taught me a lot. You know, he taught me a lot, and you know, I think nowadays people have such bad thoughts of him and the stuff that he did. And in all reality, his only crime was going back to a murder scene that he knew his friends were involved in and tried to help clean it up. And anybody would do that for their friends or their family. You know, well, maybe not anybody, but those who are loyal and true would. And that was his fucking crime, man. And you know, the government seen a person that fit a good profile, painted on. Thus, no, in my opinion, you know, like the war effort at the time, they were losing it to the hippies who were burning, you know, draft cards and preaching against the war and all that. So if they can pin this horrendous racial holy war on hippies, you know, some cult leader that they make up, then they're going to be able to put a stain on the hippies, and people will start turning their efforts back towards the war and forget all the peace and love and happiness, you know. And so I believe that firmly was the biggest reason. And Charlie also had said something that might not make sense to a lot of people, but when he first got locked up, there was an old gangster, an old mobster that was from back east, and he was influential. I don't remember his name. Taught him how to play guitar. And from what Charlie said, that guy told him, hey, man, you're going to need to ride this out. And basically that meant you're going to need to take the blame, man. And when somebody like that tells you something like that, they know something that you don't. And it's widely known that the feds and government agencies used to work with fucking mobsters and gangsters back in the day, and didn't move without both of those people knowing, and they were a dominable force, yet most people did not know that they were in cahoots doing it together. But they couldn't operate without the mob, you know, like knowing and okay and all that, you know. So yeah, I kind of believe, I don't have proof, but I kind of believe that Charlie believed at least that a serious guy told him he needs to ride that out, and so he did, man. You know, and if he rolled on his friends or told on people or blamed, like they offered him, man, I read some, man, they offered him, man, just point the finger at anybody else, man, we'll let you out. And he was an old school convict. He was raised in the system, taught not to talk to people, not to talk to cops, not to tell, not to rat, to be a brother to your brothers, and to be loyal and to be kind and generous and be vicious, you know. And he was. He had a pair of glasses that he would tell me about, and he'd say, yeah, man, the handle comes off, and next thing you know, I got this blade at their nuts. And what are they going to do? They're going to pound me? Well, I'm going to cut it off, you know. And that's just, he was crazy like that, you know. He wasn't scared of nobody, man. And, you know, in the Manson file, it says that I protected him. And I dispute that. I looked out for him, and I helped him, but he looked out for me and helped me in many ways that I wasn't able to help myself at the time, you know. Financially, fucking with support, with visits, with like, you know, people caring about me, you know. And, you know, a lot of people would pick on him because he was old and they could set him off and he'd scream in the night and just like be tortured by him. And I'm not going to let any motherfucker go through that kind of shit that was a warrior all his life and stood strong and firm in prison all in life, you know. If I'm young enough and have his back and be an influence and tell people to leave this dude alone, why wouldn't I do that? You know, like, but it didn't. Like he fucking cringed if he would have heard something like that. You know, he didn't know what I was doing for him, or maybe he did, but like, you know, he deserved that, man. He deserved that. And I just don't like seeing the bad rap he gets and all hostile people and people that don't understand him or want to believe the media just because the media spoke. You know, media is not the Bible, man. Media is not a dictionary of facts. You know, the media is sensationalism, and DAs at the time with no clue as to what happened or why or anything came up with the wildest scheme they could, man. And Charlie played the bill. You know, well, yeah, he's a good dude, man. And I still, all the people he introduced me to and opened the door to, I still talk to them all. I still talk to all his family. And, you know, like, I've never once sold anything of his or made money off him or talked bad about him or did him wrong. Like, everybody in the Manson world knows me, and they know what role I played, and I have their support. You know, like, I don't know, yeah, I always did right by him, man. He always did right by me. So, yeah, anyways, that's Charlie, man. I don't even call him Manson. I just call him Charlie, man. I never refer to him as Manson unless somebody don't know who he is. You know, and he would always talk about how infamous he was and how he would live forever because of his name. And I'd be like, dude, you're just no man, Charlie. You're just Charlie to me, man. That don't impress me. Because people's fame don't impress me much, you know? Man, we all got fame, man. Anybody who's about anything has a level of fame in here, you know? And his fame was out there, man. And before he got old, he was a warrior.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, man. And I'm not too impressed by many people. Like, there's very few people that I'm impressed by. But his heart and his genuine you know, love for the environment and for nature and, you know, everything he was about, man. He was a stand-up guy, man. And the world should know that, you know. I've stayed out of the media. I've been requested to talk to people.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Do all that kind of, man. I've stayed away from it because I ride my own fame, you know. Like I make my own name. I don't live on other people's names, and so like I've stayed out of it, man. But I get tired of hearing people put him down. So when I get the chance, I like to let people know what he's really about. You know what I mean?